Well, good morning.
Voice makes me laugh.
Driving up here this morning, I was listening to an album by Leonard Cohen, one of my favorite songwriters. And I was reminded that it was 8 years ago this week, that he passed away. And at the time, and I still kind of feel this way, at the time, I felt like the disappointment, just the disappointment in the human race with the election of Donald Trump. I felt like that was the last nail in his coffin. And that he then departed this, even though he's Canadian by birth, but still just such an embarrassment and such a disappointment.
Yes, all we Canucks are an embarrassment.
I'm sorry, what?
I said, yes, we Canucks are a big embarrassment.
Oh, yeah. So, I was reminded of the loss of him as a person, and it reminded me that 8 years ago, in the second week of November, I was standing right in this spot, probably wearing this shirt, and I was so sad and I was so disappointed, and I looked out and I felt just, such a feeling of whatever, of despair. But there is something that I can say today that I could not say 8 years ago, which is this. We faced this disappointment 8 years ago, and we are still here. We are still here. We are still together. And I know that, you never step in the same river twice, and every election is different, and the stakes are different, and, there are some differences between 8 years ago and now. But I can say, we faced this disappointment and despair 8 years ago. We are still here. We're together, and we still have some strength in that. So it is good to see you all this morning. Let's see if I can come up with a story. All right. So a lady went on a safari trip in Africa, and she brought her little dog with her. And so, when she got to the hotel, she let the little dog go run off onto the savannah to, relieve itself and whatever, experience life out there. And the dog went running out and found a pile of bones from some animal. And so the dog was just there happily kind of gnawing away at this bone when it smelled something. A leopard was stalking up behind it. And the dog got real scared, but then thought real fast and said, "Well, this sure is a tasty leopard I've killed, but I'm still hungry. Now I wish there was another one." And the leopard stalking up, hearing this, went stalking back and walked away. But this monkey ran up to the leopard and said, "Oh my goodness, that little dog got you good. I saw the whole thing. The dog didn't kill I don't even think that was a leopard. The dog didn't kill a leopard. And he fooled you, and and don't you look silly." And the leopard said, "I'm gonna go kill that little dog." And the monkey said, "Oh, well, since I told you, you gotta let me watch." The leopard said, "All right, hop on my back, I'll take you there." So the dog is there, still chewing on this bone. when it smells the leopard and a monkey. And the dog thinks real fast and says, "Now, where is that monkey? I sent him to get me another leopard to eat." Welcome to this place which we make holy by our presence. Bring your brokenness and your personal glow, your fatigue and your energy, your loves and hopes, fears and anxieties, for here you need not hide nor pretend, nor be anything other than who you are and who you are called to be. Come into this place where the ordinary is sanctified, where the human is celebrated, where compassion is strength. Welcome to this place. Together we make it a holy place. Please join me for the words of the chalice lighting that are printed in your leaflet. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of freedom. Now please stand if you're able for hymn 361 and to rejoice and come in.
And to rejoice and come in, and to rejoice and come in. Today will be a joyful day, and to rejoice and come
Number 465. Number 465 in the back of your hymnal. I picked this one the old-fashioned way by opening the hymnal to a random page. And so we'll see what we've been led to. I'm curious. If we will have the wisdom to survive, to stand like slow-growing trees on a ruined place, renewing it, enriching it, if we will make our seasons welcome here, asking not too much of earth or heaven, then a long time after we are dead, the lives will live here. Their houses strongly placed upon the valley sides, fields and gardens, rich in windows, the river will run clear as we will never know it. And over it, bird song like a canopy. On the levels of the hills will be green meadows, stock bells in noon shade, on the steps where greed and ignorance cut down the old forest. An old forest will stand, its rich leaf fall drifting on its roots. The veins of forgotten springs will have opened. Families will be singing in the fields. On their voices, they will hear a music risen out of the ground. They will take nothing from the ground they will not return, whatever the grief at parting. Memory, native to this valley, will spread over it like a grove, and memory will grow into legend, legend into song, song into sacrament. The abundance of this place, the songs of its people and its birds, will be health and wisdom and indwelling light. This is no paradisal dream. Its hardship is its reality.
Every Sunday morning, as most of you are aware, we take a pause in the midst of our service to allow people to share personal joys and personal sorrows with the rest of us. We have observed, as has been observed by many others, that sorrows that are shared are somehow diminished or more easily carried by us than they were before they were shared. And by the same token, joys that we have shared with the others are somehow strengthened too. So I'll give you a few moments to think whether there's a joy or a sorrow that you'd like to share with the rest of the congregation this morning. Even the people out there in Zoom land are welcome.
My name's Meg, and those of you that know me, that know my heart is anchored in gratitude. And this week was a tough one for me too. But one positive thing that I was able to see was my daughter's response. And it reminded me of that song, teach your children well. Teach your pets well if you don't have kids. Because she was distraught also. And she said, thank God, Mommy, that I got my IUD already because I don't know what's going to happen to my rights. And I thought, oh, wow, I know I had that perspective, but I really hadn't heard her express it like that. So, you know, something I did was right out there, and I reached out to my former husband, and he responded, yes, her politics are spot on, and he was grateful too. So thank you. That's a joy.
Good morning. I'm Linda. I am joyful that in inflation is way down, unemployment is way down, manufacturing is pretty well up, and the stock market is way up. So hopefully this week the voters will, oh, and there's a sorrow.
Can't have all winners, can you?
Sorry for this precaution. I just want to say, always pursue love, and you know you might find it in a very surprising place.
I am grateful for this community because the devastation this week and the things that I keep seeing online are community is all that's going to really help us. So find a community and be in a community, and that's going to help us get through. And I'm just really grateful for this community. And like yesterday, my cousin got married and there was no kids allowed. So Emerson went and stayed with Marge, and I'm grateful to her. And he had a great time. He just had a really great time. We went home. Oh, no offense to Grammy, but Marge is way more fun. They walked to the creek and they threw the sticks in, and he played with her vacuum, and he just had a great time with Marge. So thankful to Marge, and I'm thankful to this community.
I am thankful I can breathe again. Yeah. And I discovered this week that this is not the only place that you people meet, right, Marge and Pam, in this neighborhood. So hands up if anybody else in the past has gone to advanced physiotherapy and Dr. Andrew Willis. See? So I walk in on whatever day it was to get my shoulder fixed or I don't know, whatever. Who was sitting on the table next to me? But Pam. And in the spring, who is sitting on the table next to me? But Marge. I'll be seeing you next, likely.
Francie Coleman has her hand raised. I'll see if I can get it to work.
Okay. All right. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. My grandson, Ryan Mayhew, turned 25, first quarter of a century yesterday. Hope his world improves as he grows too. Thank you.
Anything else that somebody has decided they'd like to share with the group? I will light one final candle to represent unspoken joys or sorrows that we may have. We will now collect an offering for the financial betterment of this church.
There's an old legend that the indigenous peoples of South America, upon first seeing Spaniards arrive in their ships, thought that they must be gods. This is doubtful, since the winds that blew the Spanish ships to shore must also have carried the scent of sailors who had spent 2 months at sea. Not to mention that in 1492, Spaniards had not bathed in 800 years, since the arrival of Islam had convinced European Catholics that anyone who washed their face or hands must be a Muslim. An Aztec watching conquistadors enter the treasure house of Montezuma described them not as angels, but as animals. One of the oldest surviving quotes from an indigenous American from 1519, he said, "The Spaniards burst into smiles. They picked up the gold and fingered it like monkeys. Their bodies swelled with greed and their hunger was ravenous. They hungered like pigs for that gold." The natives did not think that the Spaniards were gods, but they must have found the horse pretty impressive, since there had been no horses in the Americas for 20 or 30,000 years. They had never seen a human being riding an animal before. As you can imagine, any attempt to ride a jaguar had been disastrous, and any attempt to ride a llama had been ridiculous, likely resulting in getting chased down and eaten by a jaguar. So the indigenous peoples, seeing conquistadors on horseback, must have wondered when it would be their turn. And this too turned out to be a disaster. Since most of the Spaniards did not have horses, many of them began demanding piggyback rides. And that, conquistadors demanding piggyback rides from the indigenous peoples of South America, that is a historical fact, reflecting the cruelty and stupidity of history. The Spanish invasion spread into North America by the sword and by the cross, which was found to be the more useful of the two weapons, since people you killed with the sword couldn't then be forced to work in the silver mines. And the Spaniards managed to keep a monopoly on horses until the Pueblo Revolt in Santa Fe, 1680, when natives killed their military and missionary oppressors, and the horses ran free. Soon there were great herds on the plains. The horse is such an integral part of our image of the natives of the plains that it's hard to imagine what plains life must have been like without them. The natives had long cultivated large, wolf-like dogs who could pull luggage on sleds, not Alaskan ski sleds, more like medical stretchers with the back handles bouncing along as they were pulled. When horses appeared, the indigenous peoples called them spirit dogs or elk dogs because of their size. And a powerful bond formed in which horses became members of tribes. It was not a matter of livestock ownership. The Native American concept of community could embrace both human and non-human members. Soon the Plains Indians were riding these horses into bison hunts and battles, clinging with their thighs and steering with heel signals so as to keep both hands free for archery. French explorers encountering the horse riders of the plains called them the Sioux, meaning the thighs, referring to the powerful leg muscles that developed from riding this way. So when we hear about the Sioux tribes of the plains, that is what it means. They don't actually call themselves that, or they didn't. Training to do this began before the age of 9. And as Black Elk recalled, the most popular game for teenagers in the Plains tribes was called throwing them off their horses, where young warriors would kind of ride out against each other, try to knock each other down off horses, and learn how to recover quickly from a rough landing and remount before getting trampled. In the 1860s, the victorious veterans of the Civil War were shoved out into the plains to go and fight the Indians. And they were horrified to find that their muskets and cannons were useless against these naked horseback warriors who tore their neat little battle lines to pieces. Stories traveled back east, and soon the Wild West stunt show was born, a sort of traveling carnival in which Native Americans put on daring displays of death-defying feats on horseback. When the movie camera was invented, one of the very first films made was of Native American horse stunts, which then became a staple of Hollywood movie making, Cowboys and Indians. It was all pretty racist in terms of plot and characters, but the main draw for audiences was the action. People still wanted to see Native American horse riding. European Americans learned it from the natives. And the cowboy, which, you know, as a kid, I would see pictures of cowboys and think, why isn't he called a horseman? But the cowboy has become one of those quintessential symbols of Americanness. The horse and rider as American as apple pie, even though apples originally come from Russia. As American as fireworks, which originate in China. As American as the American people, who, come to think of it, the whole human species originates somewhere in Central Africa. But that's what it means to be American, is that you get all of this stuff, interesting stuff, from all of these interesting places that we come from. Well, not to switch horses in midstream of consciousness, but there's another species that's on my mind today, less glamorous than the stallion, but worth our attention. I've been thinking this week about the donkey. You know, there's a classic fable in which a lion, a donkey, and a chimp agreed to go looking for food, and that they will equally share everything they find that day. So they go their separate ways, and at the end of the day, they've got this big pile of food between them, and the lion says to the donkey, now it's your job to divide it up. And remember, we said fairly. So the donkey meticulously measured everything up and made 3 piles equal to the last grain of wheat. So what do you think? The donkey asked the lion, who immediately killed the poor donkey and threw it on a pile. Now you, said the lion to the chimp, you divide it up fairly. So the chimp thought for a moment, heaved it all into one big pile in front of the lion, and pulled a single grain of wheat for himself. Ah, said the lion, where did you learn to divide things so fairly? The chimp responded, I learned it from the donkey. I think it's from this story that we get the expression, the lion's share. You know, there's a lot that we can learn from donkeys. For example, in 1971, my father was riding a motorcycle across Kenya when he was nearly killed in a collision with a donkey. He never got on a motorcycle again. And if you asked him why, he might say, I learned it from the donkey. Which is doubly true, since if a motorcycle crash with a Kenyan donkey doesn't kill you, you may next find yourself getting eaten by a lion. This episode recently came up in a conversation, and somebody I was talking to said, "Oh, I thought you were going to say that jackass nearly got me killed." It's hard to talk about donkeys without using the A word. It's also hard when you need a favor and someone uses the expression, "That's a pretty big ask," not to answer, "It's as God made it," since the phrase big ask doesn't make any sense. And it's darn near impossible to talk about the Bible without using the D word or the H word or occasionally the BS word, but we've got to try, even though the story I'm going to tell uses the A word 12 times in just 10 verses. I'm going to clean this up since there are words that I really won't use in a church unless something really heavy falls on my foot. In the biblical book of Numbers, a prophet named Balaam is sent to curse the Moabites, and either curses them too hard or not hard enough. He kindles the anger of God. And so he's sent to deliver the message again. He saddles his donkey, rides toward Moab, when suddenly the donkey sees an angel in the middle of the road, sword drawn. And let's remember here, it's the Old Testament, where angel doesn't mean some pixie wearing bed sheets and playing a harp. It generally means a supernatural assassin. In this case, it's an assassin who's invisible to Balaam, but can be seen by the donkey, which is fascinating since, for one thing, a donkey's eyes are on either side of her head, not in front. But what's even more fascinating, it means this is the only time in the Bible when we, the readers, see a story from an animal perspective. So the donkey sees the sword-swinging spirit in the road, tries to turn aside, and Balaam thrashes her. She keeps going. Twice more she sees the angel. Twice more he whips her, until finally she stops. And in the book of Numbers 22:28, she said, the Lord opened the mouth of the donkey, and she said unto Balaam, "What have I done unto thee, that thou hast smitten me these 3 times?" So not only can she speak, but she's Shakespearean in her use of the King's English. I'm kidding, since this is, of course, a translation. Originally, the donkey spoke Hebrew. Balaam stammered back, "Because thou hast mocked me, I wish there was a sword in my hand, for now I would kill thee." And she said unto Balaam, "Am I not thine A word, upon which thou hast ridden ever since I was thine unto this day? And did I ever do so unto thee?" And he said, "Nay." Wonders never cease. Not only can the donkey wax Shakespearical, but now the prophet Balaam can magically speak horse. And as we read in Scripture, then the Lord opened the eyes of Balaam, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road, and his sword, with his sword drawn in his hand. And Balaam bowed down his head and fell flat on his face. And the angel of the Lord said unto him, "Wherefore hast thou smitten thine A word these 3 times? Behold, I went out to withstand thee, because thy way is perverse before me. And the animal saw me, and turned from me these 3 times, and if she hadn't, surely now I would have slain thee and saved her alive." So Balaam apologizes and continues on his way till he reaches his destination and solemnly swears, "Only the word that God putteth in my mouth, that shall I speak." Which, of course, begs the question, wouldn't his audience have been 100 times more impressed to hear it straight from the horse's mouth? By which I mean the donkey's mouth. Instead of this guy Balaam, who everybody already knew was a horse's A word anyway. More important, the donkey in this story is a prophet, in the sense that she delivers a message from God, making her one of the only female prophets in the Bible, and the only talking animal who's not a reptile, the famous snake in Eden. And not only does she teach Balaam, but she also saves his life 3 times, since the angel says he would have killed the rider with the sword if the donkey hadn't been so polite. The donkey is a symbol of stubbornness. And nobody ever says love and marriage go together like a mule and carriage. Although if you ask my wife. The donkey is a symbol of stubbornness. Well, sometimes you've got to be stubborn when you know what's right. No, wait, that's those other people who are stubborn when they think that they are right. Well, in these years to come, whatever's going to happen, I say to you, sometimes you've got to be stubborn. When you feel, when you know, not when you know that you're right, but sometimes you got to be stubborn when you know what is right. Thank you. Now please stand if you are able for our next song, hymn 131, Love Will Guide Us.
Love will guide us, peace has taught us.
Do we have announcements today?
Mine's sort of an announcement, but more of a question. Okay, is there like a sign-up sheet for the Thanksgiving? Are we having Thanksgiving dinner?
At first, for a long time, many years, we have made the Thanksgiving turkey and potatoes, and other people have brought other things, and we've eaten dinner here. And then I decided not to do it this year, but actually just the other day, I couldn't see why we couldn't do it here. So, so now I've changed my mind again, and I don't usually do this, but I think I'll get papers ready for next week, and we'll say to come around 2 o'clock if you want to play games, help set up and everything, and then we'll eat around 4 and clean up, and it will be here. So you are welcome to bring as many people as you want, as long as you let us know, and I will have a list saying what we need. We'll supply the turkey, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Yeah, because I have, I have 3 people in.
I would just like to bring it to everyone's attention that thanks to Bill Lisk, we have a new refrigerator downstairs. And Bill took it upon himself to get all the arrangements made. He did the measurements. He talked to George's, and he got us a great deal. And it's a very fashionable one. Stainless steel, I heard. I haven't seen it yet, and it's working great. But thank you, Bill. We all appreciate it.
And I would just like to remind everyone that the first lecture on the Amish will be next Sunday after coffee hour.
And I would like to remind everyone that in about a half hour, we'll do an adult education session today, and we'll be looking closer at some of the horseback riding tribes of the American Midwest. So I'm looking forward to it. Together, we have sanctified this space. If you have found strength and comfort here, share some out there. Remember that you are blessed, and you are a blessing, and you are not alone. Please join me for the words of extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
We love our headless horse, headless horse, headless horse, and to our headless horse pledge our loyalty. No horse in this world has such a noble grace, and though he lost his head, we're sure he had a noble face. Knights of the headless horse, one for all for one. Hail to the only one, only horse without a head. Yeah, it's my kind of crazy, still running its courses with wildflowers, wild horses. That's it. That's all I got.